I'm still waiting for mine.
Yeah.
You're going to get it. Don't worry,
haven't got to me.
Don't worry, Michelle, you're going to get it. Yeah.
Can I get in edgeways? Yes, I can. I'm speaking now. Do you know Bushy Park?
Hi.
Do you know Bushy Park? No. Can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
No. Do you know Bushy Park?
Yes.
Bushy.
I tell you where I went to. I went to the Priory. You know the Priory?
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
That's the place to go to.
Bushy's a nice
I don't think it's that.
nice little lake and some birds and
Bushy Park.
Where is that? Where is that? Where is it?
Where's that? Bushy Park?
It's Bushy. It's
Chiltern Avenue or King George Avenue. My daughter lives in King George Avenue, right by the entrance to the park.
Okay. Is it nice? Is it nice?
Very lovely park, yes. There's pool there and everything.
Yeah.
Pool for children.
Really?
small.
Okay.
When I was a kid,
And
I
if
used to go to Itchy Park.
If we go, we'll bump into her.
And if anyone fancies a little bit further out, Battersea Park is lovely. Come and see me in Battersea Park.
Oh, Battersea. That's a
Hello,
long
Shauna.
way.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, fine, thank
Bushy is
you.
very small
Hello, good
compared to
morning.
Cashierberry.
How you doing?
Cashierberry is huge.
Oh,
Cashierberry, yes.
That's
Cassiter's.
huge.
Hello,
Hi.
Pauline. Hello, Ashley.
But Bushy Park's a very nice park.
Hello.
But
Hello,
small.
Jerry.
yes.
Jerry,
Hello,
Vanessa.
Esther.
Fantastic.
Hello,
You look
Esther.
great. Both of you
Hello,
look
Esther.
great.
At last, I've joined you.
Oh my goodness, Esther, where have you been all these
We should
months?
be seen.
Derek.
I don't know.
Hi, Leela.
Okay.
Leela, hello.
How
How did you manage that?
You both look very well.
Now you can see.
Hi,
Hello,
Little bit more.
Pauline.
Anna.
Anna. Rochelle, I can't see Rochelle.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
No,
hello,
she's
hello.
not my picture.
Hello, Anna.
Oh, amazing. How did you manage that, Esther?
Hello, Esther. Hello, Rochelle.
And hello, Rochelle. And hello, Robert.
Good for you.
Hello, Esther.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sally.
Hello,
Sally.
Jerry.
Hello, Sally. Hello.
Sally. Hello, are you in the Swiss Alps?
I like the picture behind you. It's like the
Okay.
picture behind you.
Oh, yes. No, she's in the Swiss Alps today.
Just in case I haven't done the tidying up, I thought actually
I'm in the short.
I forgot. It's brilliant.
Okay.
Brilliant.
I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. I hate to do this. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to.
Oops. Let me just think. Okay. To unmute. Allow participants to unmute themselves. Okay. Can you all hear me? Tell me you can all hear me. Put your hands up. That's good. You know, it's a little bit discombobulated. Is that the right word? In the fact that you know, I'm speaking from here, and I don't get any reaction necessarily. So so I don't know whether or not you can all hear me or not, but it seems that you can, which is very nice. It's lovely to have 27 screens today on this, and it's lovely to see all of you. And I just want to say, some of you are looking very good and well, and I just also the sound is cutting out. Is that better? I hope you
Yes,
can
that's
hear
right.
now.
Yes.
Okay, I sometimes
It's a bit-
I have this very bad habit. I have this very bad habit of sometimes putting my reading material on the end of my laptop, and that cuts out sound because that's exactly where you get the sound. So I just hope you can all hear me, and that's great. If you do have a problem, please tell me and unmute yourself. If you do unmute yourself, mute yourself afterwards. I do like questions. Everybody knows that I do like questions. And if you do have a question, please unmute yourself, ask the question, or put up your hand or something, or wait until the end and I'm very happy to answer any question about anything I say today. I don't think anything I say, is that better? I know somebody said it's a bit muffled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sound
is
quality.
it not good? Is it
No,
not
it's
good?
not.
No, sound quality is not good.
Right. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Better?
Better, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Much better.
I get a bit closer. Get a bit closer. Sorry about this. All this. I'm getting all these chats coming in. Very muffled. My voice is breaking up. We can't understand you. Okay. Don't forget to update the Zoom. It updated last weekend. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. If I do break up, just keep telling me, and I'll try to speak as loud as possible, and so that I can get over to everybody as much as possible. I'm really sorry if it's breaking up. First, just want to say how nice it is to see everybody here, and it's wonderful to have so many people here to study a little bit with me. The title of this talk is The Ten Commandments. Is it just a film, or is there more to it? Before I begin, I better say that I have never sat down to watch a 3.5-hour Cecil B. DeMille film version of the Ten Commandments. I haven't seen it, but I have seen a few clips of it, and the sets are very good. It's quite an epic, and Charlton Heston plays really well as Moses and the voice of God at the burning bush. But when I ask, is there more to it? Is there more to the Ten Commandments? And it's got nothing to do with the film, not to the film. So if you were thinking that I was going to give a commentary to the film, I'm not. I hope you didn't think I was. I can see, Lawrence, that you have a cup of tea in your hand. Please do it, because it does say tea and Torah. I don't have my tea. I have to go home to get a cup of tea, unfortunately. So if you've got your cup of tea, please enjoy it, and please drink the Calvon. What I am going to do, though, in this pre-Shavuot talk, is to discuss the Ten Commandments and their relevance today. On Shavuot itself, even though because of our circumstances, we will not be in shul, nevertheless, hopefully, as I do every Shabbat and throughout the week, I delve into the Torah portion for that particular week and read through it. So on Friday morning, please God, I will be going through the Torah, starting from Exodus chapter 19, verse 1, which describes the Bnei Israel's arrival at the mountain. It starts with the words, in the third month, the Bnei Israel arrived at the mountain. And the people encamped opposite the mountain. And then it speaks about the preparation up to and including a dramatic description of the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. That's what we're going to be reading on Friday morning. And then culminating in the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, as we call them. That's what I will be doing on Shavuot morning, and reading through it. A little observation, and that is that the Ten Commandments are a cornerstone of the Judeo-Christian ethic. The moral underpinning, the basis behind it is etched in the minds and the hearts of the Western society. Yet, when I have had children from the different schools, non-Jewish schools, into the shul on a guided tour, which I've done many times in the past, at the moment we can't do that, you might be surprised to hear that when I ask the children, does anybody know the Ten Commandments? And you'll be surprised. We're talking about years, 1 second, am I still very crackly? I'm still very crackly? Can you hear me? You can hear me, good. It could be our connection. It could be the connection. I don't know.
It hasn't been as bad as this, Rabbi.
No?
It's all been very clear.
Okay, let me just see if I can come out of here. 1 second. If I exit full screen, Yes, I'm still in here. If I go out, no, I can't go out. I don't think I've got anything
Well,
else.
the volume is good, but it's very
Very bad.
very
Very
crackly.
crackly.
But it's good volume.
Okay, right. I can't do anything about that. That's in the hands of the internet company.
Well, that's
So
better now.
yes, okay.
Slightly better now.
That's good now.
It could be because I had something else on in the background, which was I had my email system on, so it could be.
This is much clearer now.
Yes. So let me just get back. Let me just get back to where I was, and I'll continue. Yeah, when I have had children from non-Jewish schools into the shul on a guided tour, you might be surprised to hear that when I ask the question, does anybody know all the 10 Commandments? And you'll be surprised we're talking about 4 to 6 in primary school, which are basically 9 to 11-year-olds. And in most cases, very few children can tell me. Very few children can tell me any of the 10 Commandments. They have a guess. And we slowly work our way through it. It takes about 10 minutes for me to eke out from the kids the 10 Commandments. And even worse, I ask the teachers and the parents who have come with them, and most of them don't know either, unless they might happen to be religious Christians. Even though, by the way, they were supposed to have been primed before they came to my shul and have learned some of it about the Jewish tradition, they don't know the 10 Commandments, which is really quite an interesting factor. Nevertheless, I believe that the 10 Commandments are deep within the psyche of Western civilization. And it's about knowing right from wrong. And that's very important in my mind. So a few facts about the 10 Commandments. Number one, it's a misnomer. What do I mean by that? Nowhere in the Torah are they called the 10 Commandments. They are, which means Aseret HaMitzvot, the 10 mitzvot. They're not called that. What they are called is, I'm just going to find it over here in the Chumash, and I'm going to share with you my page. And here we are. I've got my page over here, page 960 in the Chumash, Pasuk Yud Beit, and let me have a look. Let me see if I can share this with you. I'm going to see if I can share screen with you. Hold on. There we are. Ooh, hold on. Oh, you get a bit of a face of me. Ah, here we are. Hold on. Hope this is going to work. There we are. Let me just zoom in over here. There we are. Ah. Vayaged lachem, and he told to them, et brito, he told to them, et brito, his covenant, which he commanded you to do, Aseret HaDevarim, the 10 Devarim. That's what it's called in the Torah. Aseret HaDevarim, Vayichtavem al Shnei Luchot Avanim. The 10 Devarim, Vayichtavem, and he wrote them al Shnei Luchot Avanim, on 2 Luchot, tablets of stone. Let me just translate this properly in Mr. Artswell. Mr. Artswell is very good. Hold on. Hope this is, you can read this. 1 second. Hashem, hold on. Let me just get this. Hashem spoke to you from the midst. Oh, this is terrible. Hold on. Let me just do that. Hashem spoke to you from the midst of the fire. You were hearing the sound of words, but you were not seeing a likeness in his own. He told you of his covenant that he commanded you to observe. Aseret HaDevarim, the 10 declarations, and he inscribed them on 2 stone tablets. Notice those words, the 10 declarations. Not the 10 mitzvot, not the 10 commandments, but the 10 declarations. But I'm going to go even further than that, because I'm going to go into Parshat, the end of Parshat Ki Tisa. Let me just find this. Parshat Ki Tisa. Hold on. There we are. And here we are. Here we are. Kafhed. Vayisham. Ah, 1 second. Let me just. Vayisham im Hashem, and he was there with God. Arba'im Yom, 40 days. Va'arba'im Laila, 40 nights. Lechem lo achal, he ate no bread. Umayim lo shatah, he did not drink any water. Vayichtol ala luchot, and he wrote on the luchot, on the tablets, a divrei habrit, the words of the brit, of the covenant, aseret hadavarim, the 10 Devarim. Mr. Art Scroll, he translates it here slightly differently. Let me just get this. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Quite interesting. Let me just come out of here for a second. Yeah. Stop the share. There we are. I hope I haven't lost anybody as we go through this. You see, if you look over here, in both of these, it's called the Aseret HaDevarim. In one place, he translates it, Mr. Artswell, it's like the 10 declarations. And the other one, Aseret HaDevarim, the 10 commandments, Mr. Artswell. But Aseret HaDevarim, anybody knows Hebrew, they will tell you, Devarim does not mean mitzvot, doesn't mean commandments. Devarim means things, declarations. So Aseret HaDevarim doesn't mean the mitzvot. So it's a misnomer to use it. I would like to use the words declarations, statements, or phrases. That would be the correct terminology. So we need to understand, what do we mean by Aseret HaDibrot, the 10, and how did it get to mean 10 commandments? That's my first question. Are there, in fact, 10 commandments in the Aseret HaDibrot? A very simple question. And it is a misnomer, because, as I said, it's not called the 10 Commandments. That's the first question. Number 2, it seems that we place a particular emphasis on the 10 Commandments. That's what we'll call them for now. To the extent that it's read out at the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. Very famous that we do it on the first day. We do place that emphasis, and we read it 2 other times in the year. We read it Parashat Yitro, when we read it in the Torah, and Parashat Va'et Hanan, when we read that in the Torah. During the temple period, they were incorporated as part of the service in the temple, and the Shema, So we find this in something called Masechet Tamid. And this says like this, and we're going to just read it out to you. The appointed one said to the Kohanim, this comes from Masechet Tamid, chapter 5, Mishnah 1. And he says like this, the appointed one said to the Kohanim, this was the temple service. Baruch Hu Brachachad, recite a single blessing of the blessings that precede the Shema. Baruch Hu, and they recited the blessing. Karu Aseret HaDibrot. They then recited the 10 Commandments. Shema, V'hayim Shema, V'yomer. The 3 paragraphs that form the Shema, which is Shema, V'hayim Shema, and V'yomer. And then they said, they also recited the following 3 blessings. Okay, but it seems from this that part of the temple service, and incorporated in that temple service, was the recital of the Aseret HaDibrot, to the extent that it was like part of the Shema. So that's really important. It's like incorporated in the Shema to say that. Really important. So it shows how the rabbis made a really big thing about the Shema. It seems at first glance that these words were spoken directly to the Bnei Yisrael at Mount Sinai. In other words, they heard these words directly from God. And it's only the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, that are to be found on the 2 tablets of stone. That Moshe came down the mountain, and no other commandments are incorporated in the 2 tablets of stone. So the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, the Aseret HaDibrot, are up there. They're really important. And when we read them in the shul, we stand, as did the Israelites, when they were first given the Torah. Vayityatzvu the Tachtias Haha, as the Torah says. They stood underneath the mountain. And it makes sense. Our standing today commemorates this momentous occasion when we stood at Har Sinai all those 3,332 years ago. In addition, I want to share with you this, which is rather interesting, this book of Qumran. Let me see if I can do this as a share. Just zoom in on it. And here we go. This little share screen. Hold on. And you will see something very, very interesting. This is from Qumran. Now you might say, what is that? Well, actually, these are the remains of some tefillin that were found in Qumran. These are from the Dead Sea Scrolls, 2,000 years ago. So number one, it's a fascinating thing to see that they were wearing tefillin. Zoom in on that one. You can see this. It's obviously better for wear, as you can see, but these were tefillin that were found. These are not the original tefillin. It's only a picture of it that I'm sharing you on my book, but I'm just going to explain to you something else. And here's some more tefillin. Look at that. And you can actually see the parshiot as they were placed inside the tefillin. Here we go. You can see the parshiot. And this is some of the parashia that was found in the tefillin at Qumran. So, over 2,000 years ago, they were putting on tefillin as we do today. But the interesting thing about these tefillin are the following. Normally, in a pair of tefillin, you have 4 parshiot. And I just showed you those 4 parshiot in that, from that book. And they come from, the 4 parshiot that they come from Parshat Bo, where it speaks about the wearing of tefillin. 2 parshiot come from there. One from Va'etchanan, which is the Shema, and one from Akev, which is the second paragraph of the Shema, and which all of them, they speak about the giving of the wearing of tefillin. It says, "Pishaltem la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu l'totavot beinecha," and you should bind them for a sign on your hands, and they should be for frontlets between your eyes. The interesting thing about these tefillin, which I just showed you, is the following. They were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the parshiot, the little parshiot, the little scrolls that you put inside the tefillin, were from where? The Aseret HaDibrot. Right? So definitely, pre-destruction of the temple, the 10 Commandments are really up there in the lights. Let me just recap what I've just said until now. They were used as part of the Shema in the temple. It was incorporated as that. We today, when we recite the 10 Commandments, they were on the 2 tablets of stone. In addition, the tefillin that used to have the Aseret HaDibrot in some pairs of tefillin were incorporated within that. And in most shuls today, you will see, and you look behind me, let me see if I can do that. Yes, you can see it. There's my Aseret HaDibrot. Can you see it? You can see it over there. Yeah. And if you look down over here, 1 second, if you look on my arm, sorry, if you can zoom in, maybe big, you can actually see the Aseret HaDibrot on the arm. Not so clear, but there they are, the 10 Commandments. It's on the arm. We have that in almost every single shul you go to. You have depictions of the Aseret HaDibrot above the ark, as in our shul, on the Sefer Torah covers, and on the curtain of the shul. So we can see what an emphasis our sages placed on the 10 Commandments. On the other hand, and on this occasion, there is a very big other hand. The rabbis downplayed the role of the 10 Commandments. And this, I'm going to now show you how they downplayed it. Note, even though the Mishnah mentions the Aseret HaDibrot as being part of the Shema in the temple, I want to share with you something from the Mishnah from the Gemara, rather, in Brachot. And it says like this. I hope you're with me at the moment. I'm going to screen share again. Just do this. Hold on. Share screen. There we are. There we are. Ah, there we are. So the Gemara shares this idea. The Talmud in Brachot shares this idea. But that in the temple, they would read the Aseret HaDibrot, they would recite the Ten Commandments, Shema, V'haya im Shema, V'yomer, and the 3 paragraphs that form the Shema, which are Hear, O Israel, and it will come to pass if you hearken them, Hashem said. Emet Yativ Avodah B'Chasanim, they would then continue with the following 3 blessings, Emet V'Yativ, the blessing of the temple service, and the blessing of the Kohanim. No problem so far. This they used to do in the temple service. The Gemara discusses the practice of reciting the 10 Commandments along with the Shema. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Af Biglu, Bikshu Likoten. They, i.e. the sages, wish to recite the 10 Commandments along with the Shema in a manner even in the provinces, i.e. even outside the temple precincts. In other words, in the synagogues, let's do it. That's the time of them, just after the time of the Mishnah. Ella Sheva Biklum. But soon abolished them, i.e. their recitation, Mipnei Tarumet Haminim, because of the arguments of the heretics. Oh my gosh, the libel of the minim of the heretics. Number one, we need to understand what does it mean in this Mishnah in this Gemara by the arguments of the heretics. The Gemara supports this from a Brisa, another Mishnah, which says like this: Tamanama Hachi was taught likewise in the Brisa. Rabbi Nathan Omer, Rabbi Nathan said, they wish to recite the 10 Commandments in this matter, even in the provinces, as part of their daily prayer. But soon abolished them, i.e. their recitation, because of the arguments of the heretics. The Gemara recites a related incident. Rabbi Babachana, Sava and Surah. Rabbi Babachana, very famous rabbi, thought to institute recitation of the 10 Commandments along with the Shema in Surah. Amalei Rav Chisda. This is a later rabbi, about 3rd century. Amalei Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said to him, but they already abolished their recitation once before because of the arguments of the heretics. How can you consider instituting it? So, from this Mishnah, from this Gemara that we've just learned together, it actually seems that because of the heretics, we don't actually say it. I don't understand. What do they mean by this? The Tarumet Haminim. What do we mean by the heretics, the libels of the heretics? Who were these? What was their problem? Why would they not want to incorporate the 10 Commandments as part of the daily recitation of the Shema? Why not? Have you not noticed? When we daven every single day, we say the Shema, we say the Shema Esrei. We don't say the Aseret HaDibrot. We don't say the 10 Commandments. It's not there. That's really strange. So obviously, from this Gemara, it's mashma. It seems that they didn't do it because of the libels of the heretics, but we don't know what it means. Rashi, in his uncensored edition of the Talmud, and because you have to understand, during the Middle Ages, many of the editions of the Talmud were actually censored. The reason why they were censored is because of the Christians. The Christians didn't like a lot of things that were said. And Rashi, in his commentary, Rashi lived in 12th century, and 1096 to be exact, around that time. And he writes, before, in the uncensored edition, before the Christian censors altered the text, he says like this: what does it mean, Tarumet Haminim, the libels of the heretics, Talmudei Yeshu, the disciple of a person called Yeshu. Who's Yeshu? Yeshu are the disciples of a person called Jesus. Right? The early Christians. Why would they have this problem about the early Christians? It's simple. The Nazarene, the Nazareans, as we call them, the early Christians, wanted to extirpate and bring down the commandments to a basic 10. So they didn't want to keep the laws of Tumatara, Kashrut, Shabbat, the laws of purity and impurity, Kashrut, Shabbat. That all went out of the window. They said, okay, we can be Christians or whatever, but we want to be Jewish Christians or whatever they want to be, but we want to cut it down to a limited amount of mitzvot, of commandments. This was a new religion, and they didn't want to have the baggage of the old religion, i.e. Judaism, with the many mitzvot, with the many different commandments. Of course, this is actually, the disciples of Jesus came up with this idea, but it's actually in direct contradiction to Jesus' own statement where he says, I come not to abrogate the law, I come not to get rid of the laws, but to uphold it, not to keep the laws. He didn't want to throw the laws out the window, but his followers did. They were saying, these 10, yes, they're in. The rest, no, get rid of them. The rabbis at the time were very wary. They knew that there were within their midst people who wanted to water down their Judaism. There were people who were Jewish Christians. So when they were approached to incorporate the 10 Commandments as part of public tefillah in the Shema, they said no. And that's where we have this Gemara telling us this. So how many mitzvot were given at Sinai? How many were there? So if you look, there's lots and lots of laws. There's whole sidrot, there's whole parashiot that are dealing with the laws and the mitzvot given at Sinai. Listen to what it says in the Gemara in Makot. I wanted to share this one with you. It's very, very interesting. And I'm going to do once again another share. Let's hope this will work again. Hold on. There we are. There we are. There we are. It should come to you. Darash Rab Samlai. Rab Simlai expounded. 613 commandments were related to Moses, were given to Moses. 365 negative commandments, corresponding to the days of the solar year, and 248 positive commandments, corresponding to the number of parts of the human body. Rav Hamnuna said, Micah, which verse teaches this? He quotes a verse, Torah tzivah lanu Moshe morasha. Moses commanded us the Torah as a heritage. Torah, the word Torah is the numerical value of the word Torah is Shit Me'ah. 1 second. Let me just get this straight. Shit Me'ah 611. To this total, let's add the first two of the commandments. Anochi lo yelecha mipi hakavua shemanu. He says the first two of the commandments, I am the Lord your God, and you shall not have any other gods but me, are added. So you've got 613 commandments of the Torah. Very, very interesting stuff. By the way, you have this all over the Talmud. It's an accepted fact. 613 commandments were given at Mount Sinai. In fact, the interesting thing is that the rabbis, especially in the Middle Ages, they wrote compendiums of books to make up the 613 commandments. For example, the Rambam, Maimonides, we know him well, and he wrote a book called Sefer HaMitzvot, the Book of Commandments. And in this, he actually shows how there are actually 613 commandments in the Torah. So there's not 10, there's 613 commandments given in the Torah. In fact, I remember a song I used to sing at school, actually not at school, it's B'nai Kiva, and then after that, Chabad in the Babit, we used to sing like this. I just sing the song, so just to lighten up the load, it goes like this. 613 is our number, sits remind us the whole day through. 613 is our number, sits remind us the whole day through. Do's to 48, don'ts 365, do's to 48, don't 365. Now, actually, 613 is our number, and sitses remind us, sitses actually add up to 600, right? And 13 make up the other 13 make up the 5 knots and the 8 strings, right? That makes 613 mitzvahs of the Torah, and that's how we get it. Okay, 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. So that comes all the way throughout the Talmud. We have this rather interesting idea of 613. The idea that somehow certain mitzvahs were more important than others is something very alien to Jewish thinking. Listen to this dictum from Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers. It's Rav who says, "Have a ratz lemitzvah kala to v'chamura." He says, run to a light mitzvah, a lenient mitzvah, just like you would to a heavy one. Whatever it means by a light mitzvah and a heavy mitzvah. Because you do not know the reward for the mitzvahs that we do, the commandments that we do. Since we do not know the reward waiting for us for fulfilling the mitzvot, and by the way, you have this many times in the Talmud, it tells us we don't know the reward for each and every mitzvah. You can't make a cheshbon. You can't start saying this one is more important than this one is not. And therefore we keep one and we don't keep the other. We put on tefillin. We keep kashrut. We try to keep as much as we possibly can. You can't turn, I mean, some people, we are only human, and some of us are, and we err, and some of us are able to keep more and less. But we don't turn around and say, there are less mitzvot than what the Torah tells us. There are 630 mitzvot. Some of them actually apply today, and some of them don't. And some of them are there and are easy for us to do, and some of them are not as easy. But, so if I were to turn around and say, this one is in the 10 Commandments, and this one is not, so I can't keep that one because it's not as important. Sorry, that is not the traditional way, of Jewish way of looking at it. We would say all the mitzvot are just as equal, and we have to keep all the mitzvot in that way. So if you look at the 10 Commandments and how we read them, you will see that every single one of them is to be found in other parts of the Torah. If you look at the 10 Commandments, you will see they're all there, but you'll see that they're found in all different parts. So I'll give you an example. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. This first statement is about belief in God. By the way, it's quite interesting. The Christians, Catholics, and the Protestants actually don't add this. They don't say this is commandment. They say that that's a statement, not a commandment. We believe that it's actually the basis to all the other commandments because it's in the first person singular. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then the second one, Lo yelapah Elohim achilim. You shall not have any other gods. Once again, it's Hashem speaking directly, first person. After that, it changes from the first person into the third person. But that's quite interesting. That's another issue. This mitzvah, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, is the underpinning of all the other mitzvahs. If you believe in Hashem, then you fulfill all the other mitzvahs. It's the underpinning. Therefore, we understand it. But it is repeated and said in a number of places in the Torah. For example, let me give you an example. The first words of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's not a commandment, but it's actually also a statement. And it's actually a statement saying God created the world and that we believe in God. That is just as powerful a statement as Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Or in another place, it says, Kadoshim you shall be holy. Ani Hashem Elokechem, for I am the Lord your God. Kadosh ani, for I am holy. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am the Lord your God. Notice, this is also the command to believe in God and imitate the Yodeo, to actually emulate Hashem. Once again, it's repeated in a few different places. There are prohibition. The next one, you shall not have any other gods. The prohibition against idolatry, or the prohibition against not saying God's name in vain. You will find that these prohibitions in countless other places in the Torah. Next one, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. They're not allowed to do any work on the Sabbath day. Interesting. You'll find that in 39, that particular mitzvah repeated 39 other different places in the Torah. Honoring your parents, you'll find it also in Parshat Kedoshim. Lo tilatzach, you shall not murder. You'll find that also, Makei ish vamet mot yamat. If the person kills another person and he dies, he shall surely be put to death. Once again, that will be found in Parshat Mishpatim. Not enough, you shall not commit adultery. In lots of different places, Parshat Emor and Parshat Acharimot, Parshat Kedoshim, it speaks about the laws about immoral sexual relations. Then it goes on, Lo tiknav, you shall not steal. It speaks about it in Parshat Kedoshim, Lo tiknavu, you're not allowed to steal. Once again, it's mentioned in other places. Lo taneh b'lecha et shakeh, do not bear false witness. Once again, it speaks about it in many different places in Torah. And Lo tachmod, you shall not covet. Also, it speaks about it in many other places. If they are all to be found in many other places in the Torah, it comes back to a very integral question. Why these particular mitzvot? Why are these dibrot more than any other mitzvot in the Torah? Why do we make such a big emphasis on the Aseret HaDibrot if they're to be found in so many other places? They're all important, so why choose these out more than any of the others? Just as an aside, there's a famous responsa, there's a famous teshuvah of the Rambam, where he questions whether or not one should stand on Shavuot for the reading of the Aseret HaDibrot. That's what we do, by the way. The halacha is that we actually stand for the Aseret HaDibrot, just for that. He says, I don't think we should. The Rambam, we don't follow the Rambam on this, Maimonides on this. He says, I don't think we should stand for it. Why is it? Because it's as if we are saying, these 10 are important and the rest are not. Therefore, we don't. Therefore, according to the Rambam, you shouldn't. Most of the authorities, by the way, disagree with the Rambam in this. We only stand, they say, in commemoration of Matan Torah, not because we believe that these 10 commandments are more important than the rest. It's not that we do that because they are more important than the rest. I think somebody found that a bit boring, sorry. So, why these 10? That's my question. Why these 10? It goes back to what I mentioned earlier. The 10 commandments are Aseret HaDibrot, 10 statements. Yerushalmi says that these 10 statements are principles, and that from these flow the other 603 mitzvot in the Torah. Indeed, the 9th century Saadia Gaon, he says the following in his Azharot, which, according to the Sephardic tradition, are read on the night of Shavuot. 613, he says that each one of the mitzvot falls under the category of each of the 10 commandments. So he says they're not just, he says it's not these 10. This is where we start from, but these are our principles. And each one of the 613 commandments falls under one of these different 10 commandments. So for example, remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy, is a category for all the Chagim, for all the festivals. So all the festivals, Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, they fall under this category of the Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. Do not murder. It's literal murder, but included in that is in Mabim Pnei Chavora, if you embarrass the face of your neighbor, to the extent that they are so embarrassed in public, that in itself is also tantamount to murder. Lo tinaf, you shall not commit adultery, includes any other type of sexual impropriety. So in other words, that becomes a major mitzvah, that becomes the principle, and from that we take all the other ones. That's the reason why the 10 Commandments are so important to us. So I hope you've learned a little bit from this. Let me just learn out just a few other different things, a few interesting Aseret HaDibrot facts. It's interesting that I mentioned earlier that the rabbis didn't want to make it as part of our tefillah. They didn't want to make it as part of the Shema. However, the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, says that you can actually recite it every single day, but not as part of your fixed tefillah. For that reason, actually, if you open up the Siddur, I did have one over here. Here we are. Something I prepared earlier. And if you look on page 162 in the Siddur, it's found there. But our rabbis say you shouldn't say it as a public thing, as a part of our public prayers. It can only be said as part of our private prayers. Interesting. Some people have a custom of saying it soon after reciting the brachot in the morning. They incorporate it, but not as a public thing, only privately. Why is that? Well, what we said earlier, because you're going to say these are the 10 important ones, but the rest of them are not important. So for that reason, we don't. If you see it's written in the Torah, it's interesting to know. It's written in a different way. And it's really important to see how it is written in the Torah. So I'm just going to try to show you over here how it's written, and you will see something rather interesting. Let me just share this with you. Hold on. There we go. Here we are. We're back on air again. There we are. Here we are. Now, if I would show you how it's written in the Torah, you will see there's a little gap. This is the beginning of how it's written. Here's this is how it's written in the Torah. This is my tikkun, and it says, "Vaydaber Elokim et kol hadvarim ha'eleh." God spoke all these words. Then you'll see there's a gap. This is called a setuma. It's a closed gap. If you have chumashim, it would say samach here, which means closed gap. And then it goes, because what do I mean closed gap? Because it's on the same line. That's also closed gap over here. One, that's one gap. Then it goes and gives the first two commandments. Turn over the page, and you've got another one over here. Oops, sorry. There we are. And it's a closed gap again. Second gap, 1-2 gap. Then it goes up to not saying God's name in vain. It's an open gap over here. It's something called the Petucha, because it's open at the end of the line. It starts at the next line. Then you've got Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, L'Kadosh, another gap, closed gap. Kavet et avicha v'yatimecha, honor your father and your mother, and then there's a closed gap. Lo tirtzach, closed gap. Lo tinaf, closed gap. You shall not commit adultery. Lo tiknov, closed gap. Lo ta'aneh b'recha eichakeh, you shall not bear false witness. Closed gap. Lo tachmod beit re'echa, you shall not desire the house of your neighbor. And then lo tachmod eish re'echa, don't desire the wife, his wife, or whatever, or anything belongs to your neighbor, and then you have an open get. Altogether, there are actually, altogether, I think 11 gaps, making 10 phrases, 10 statements, 10 complete statements. That's how it's written in the Torah. Okay? So quite an interesting little thing over there. Let me just come back from there. Hold on. There we are. Back again. Sorry. And that's how it's written in the Torah. And that's what it means by Aseret HaDevarim, the 10 statements. So that's how it's written out in the Torah. And it's interesting because if you look also into the Chumashim, let's see if I can find this here also. If you look into the Chumash, and you'll see that it's written out in a certain way, but not only that, you will find that in our Chumash that we have, I'm just going to share this one with you also. See, there's a lot to learn about this. Share the screen. Hold on. Go back on here again. There's a lot to learn here again. Here we are. Here you will find, when you're listening to it being read, it's got a different, they have in the Chumash, they've got two different ways in which it is read in the Torah. This goes according to what we call Ta'am Elyon. The top of the cantillation is on the top as opposed to being on the bottom. And that actually subdivides the reading of the 10 Commandments into 10 separate statements. One of them being the first one, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall not have any other gods but me. You're not allowed to make an idol, etc., etc. Those two diburim, which make up about 53 words in total, make one pasuk, one verse. But Lo tiltzach, you shall not murder. Lo tinaf, that's one pasuk. Lo tinaf, you shall not commit adultery. Lo tignov, you shall not steal. All these are two words in one pasuk, make up separate pasukim. That's the reason why you have a special cantillation, a special drop that is read. So you would read it like this: Lo tiltzach, lo tinaf, lo tiganov. It's quite interesting how the drop, the cantillation itself, shows by doing such a thing, it comes out as a separate. You have some of the pasukim are going to be very long, and some of them are very short. The Aseret HaDibrot, another interesting fact. Aseret HaDibrot are subdivided into two separate parts. You've got the first 5, which are on the first luchot, and you look above over here, you find the first 5 in the first luchot, and you've got the second side, you've got the second on the second luchot on the second side. So you've got 5 and 5. The first 5, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall not have any other gods but me. You shall not say the name of God's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and mother. Those mitzvot are bein adam lemakom, between a man, between human beings, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The other 5, which are Lo tirtzach, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, and you shall not covet, you shall not be jealous of your neighbor. Those are bein adam lechaveiro. They are, sorry, let me just get this off my screen. They are between man and his neighbor. So you've got those two different types of commandments. Bein adam lemakom and bein adam lechaveiro. Also, when you read it across, so if you read it across, you've got 5 down and 5 down on each side. You've got, I'm the Lord your God. We'll read across, Lo tiltzach, you shall not murder. It's very, very interesting. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Lo tirtzach, you shall not murder. That is how it will be read on the two different luchot, be read across. And the simple idea is like this: man is made in the image of God, and if you, God forbid, you murder somebody, you cause a diminution in God, and that's how the two are connected. I'm the Lord your God, the fourth commandment: don't murder. Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim. You shall not have any other gods but me, for I am a jealous God. Falls against lo tinaf. You shall not commit adultery. You see the connection between the two ideas. So both of them are talking about relationship between ourselves and Hashem, and the relationship between ourselves and man. The important point here is to note that on the scale of things, you might turn around and say, well, one is more important than the other. It comes along and says, no. Those are between man and God, and those are between man and man in Judaism are put on the same value. That's an important idea. The fifth idea I want to share with you is the following. The Ten Commandments also incorporate mitzvot, commandments that incorporate our machshava, our thoughts, our dibur, our speech, and ma'aseh, and our action. I'll give you an example. Ma'aseh, keeping Shabbat. Dibur, action, keeping Shabbat. Dibur, speech, don't take Hashem's name in vain. And then you've got machshava, you shall not covet. Now, to me, I think that's a very interesting thing. You shall not covet, you shall not be jealous of your neighbor. Now, that's something that we can never, ever legislate about. I don't know what's going on in somebody else's mind. I don't know whether they are jealous, unless they tell me they're jealous, or of somebody else. But at the bottom line is, what the Torah is saying over here is that how we think, we have to be careful about how we think, and be careful to control how we think and what we're thinking. And to the extent that, well, you see somebody has yenem, somebody has something that they have something, we shouldn't be jealous or be coveting something that somebody else has. So in other words, the Torah is actually saying something which we can never ever legislate. To me, that shows the divinity of the Torah and how the Torah comes from Hashem, because only Hashem can actually see into our minds and understand what's going on within our minds. I hope that through this little talk, I have enlightened you a little bit into the meaning of our Aseret HaDibur and what they represent. I just touched a little bit on I haven't really gone all that deep, but I hope I've shared with you a little bit of that. Any questions about anything I've said? Please unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Roy. Thank you.
Question about thou shalt not murder.
Yeah.
What about in a war situation? What about Eichmann? What about preemptive strikes on terrorists?
Okay, so that's the whole point that you have to be very careful about. That's exactly what the Torah is saying when they're saying, there's 613 commandments. There's not just 10. We're telling 10 principles. Of course, you shall not murder, but there are exceptions to those principles, right? For example, self-defense. We know that the Torah in other places, in Parashat Mishpatim, for example, speaks about self-defense. What happens if you're forced into a situation? What happens? All these things are spoken about within the Torah. So if you just took the 10 commandments and said, these are the 10 commandments, these are the most important things, and you would say, wait a second, we don't have to, you shall not murder. So somebody comes to shoot you, you shouldn't shoot them before there's no self-defense. Cool. Torah speaks about self-defense. So in other places, so we have to understand. And if you're talking about somebody like Eichmann or whoever it might happen to be, who did terrible atrocities against Jewish people, the Torah does speak about these things. and about murder, and about how we should be about capital punishment, etc., etc. So that's the problem. If you just learn it by itself, lo tetzach, you shall not murder. But what about war situation? Torah even speaks about a mandated war, lochemet mitzvah, a war for mitzvah. Does that answer the question, Roy?
Well, half.
Yeah, go on.
You're talking now of what we'll call exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
So we now turn to honouring our parents.
Yeah.
Supposing a parent did a very dastardly thing to someone as a child, and this is nothing, not anybody I know, but if somebody did a real dastardly thing to a child as a parent, as a child, do they still have to honour their parents?
That's a really good question. And there are a lot of teshuvos about this, a lot of response there. If you have an abusive parent, if you have a parent that gave up on a child and, for example, sent them away for adoption, do you have a mitzvah, for example, to sit shiva for that particular person if that person had abused? And the answer is no. You don't have any chiyuv, no obligation whatsoever. And the rabbis actually speak about this. There's a lot of stuff about it, right? So, honor your father and your mother, but your parents have to be honorable within themselves to do that. Now, that's, you have to be pretty dastardly and pretty bad person that you're not somebody who should be honored in that respect. And you must have done some terrible things. I'm not talking about you, Roy. But anybody. But so you can say, in a normal situation, you have to honor your father and your mother. And it's interesting, by the way, I didn't notice, but these are on the first 5. Notice, the first 5 are bein adam lemakom, between man and God, which is a good question. Rabbis speak about it. And they say, adam. When a person was created, there are 3 shutfot, there are 3 partners in the creation. The father, mother, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By giving thanks and gratitude to your parents, then you are, by so doing, you're giving gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Almighty. But you are right. Somebody can forfeit their possibility of honor if they don't give honor also to their children, right? In other words, they do some really nasty things, and included in that is obviously abuse, etc., etc. That's a shir by itself. Okay, Roy? Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Lawrence.
I might be wrong, but it says somewhere an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Yeah.
So if somebody like Eichmann kills one of our brothers, we can kill him, can't we?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very, very interesting question. Funny question. You brought up Eichmann. There must be some guilt somewhere about the fact that he was given the death penalty. I don't think there's any guilt, that we should feel any guilt whatsoever. He was a good korban, a good sacrifice for the terrible things that he did. And was it 1963? Was it 1960? I can't which year it happened. I wasn't around. I was a very small baby if it did happen. It's quite interesting. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. In all the places that the Torah speaks about this, you've got to be very, very careful how you interpret the Torah. Because if you look into Parashat Mishpatim, where it speaks about eye for an eye, in the Pesukim just preceding that, in the verses just preceding, it speaks about compensation, monetary compensation. So, God forbid, a situation that, Lawrence, if you're going to take that literally, I come along, I go and punch you in the face, you should punch me back. No, compensation, monetary compensation. That's what eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is. Look in the context in which it speaks about in Parashat Mishpatim, and that's what it means. Now, if you're talking about murder, capital offense, and I think Eichmann was guilty of a lot of capital offenses, and therefore, when he was sentenced to death, I don't have any question about the fact that he was sentenced to death for the terrible things that he did. But do we take that literally? Eye for an eye? No, it doesn't mean that you should take out somebody's eye if they do it. So you don't take compensation is not to be taken literally in that respect. Yeah, Lawrence, did you get that?
Yeah.
It's very, very. You've got to be very careful. That's why you need to read the rabbinic text that actually says, and there's no rabbinic text that says that should be taken literally, that we should go along knocking people's knees off or whatever and running them down. God forbid. That's not what Judaism is about, and you know that. Anybody else, please? Anybody else? Anybody else? Ah, Martin. Yes, go
on. Just going back to Roy's point here.
Yeah.
The sixth commandment: do not murder.
Yeah.
And they brought in Eichmann, the Nazis, etc. The point is, I think the commandments, as they're set out, is for each of us to adhere to. Everyone's got free choice.
Yeah.
And it is for us. It is speaking to us personally, individually.
Yeah.
10 Commandments. And so in Eichmann's case, if we can, if we, for example, kill him or sentence him to death, that is not the same as, strictly speaking, adhering to the sixth commandment: do not murder. The commandments are for us individually to carry out, and not for others. Others have free choice as what they do. They may not believe in the commandments. They may not have heard of the 10 Commandments or whatever. So,
right.
You've got.
So I'm going to. Can I address your question? Your question is, we've got a choice. We've got the 613 commandments. Which one of them is Lo Tirzach, you shall not murder? And by the way, in the Torah, in many different places in the Torah, you will find that it mentions about, and I mentioned this earlier, it mentions about the commandment of not murdering. A person who smites a person and he dies, he should surely die, right? It speaks about that. But it also speaks about situations where killing is allowed. War situations, also in a situation of self-defense. It's important to notice, principle, which are the 10 Commandments, comes under the 10 Commandments. The Lord Tirzach. But at the same time, you've got another 10 or 15 commandments that speak about manslaughter, murder, all the different types of things. So it's important to recognize. It's too easy to, have these very, very quick statements and saying, what's the word for it? How to do this in 5 easy ways or whatever. It's not 5 easy ways. We've got legislation, we've got Torah, we've got the different laws, and we have to understand. Well, when it says Lo Tirzach, that is talking about the general principle of it. But from there, we have to understand when is it allowed, when it's not allowed. It's really, really important to understand that. Now, what you actually led on to was something very, very important. We've got 613. The non-Jews have 7. They've got 7. These are called the 7 Noahide laws. They don't keep the 10. They keep the 7 Noahide laws. At one specific time, we'll learn about the Noahide laws. Of course, murder is one of them. So we have to understand. Okay? And stealing and all the other one. And amongst that, those are general principles. But from that also come other things. And we have to set up laws, courts of law, etc., etc. So we've got to be very, very careful when we understand that idea of murder, etc. So when you talk about Eichmann, he came under the Noahide tradition, and we have to understand that that's what we're talking about. Can I now turn to Rosalind? Rosalind, I'm going to lower your hand and unmute yourself, please. Thank you. Are you on?
Yes. My understanding is that the first 2 of the 10 words or 10 commandments were given by God and directly in the first person, but we or our ancestors and all their descendants were there at the time. The other 8, which are given by Moses, they too are for all of us. They're not just for us individually. And I understand the 10 Commandments as 10 commandments to all Jews who should take personal responsibility, not responsibility also for fellow Jews, so that we are not individuals on our own, but we are responsible for the whole of Israel. So I don't see it as an individual requirement, that we, maybe the following 603 are for our personal requirements, but the first 10 are for us as a nation, and that we are personally responsible, and therefore if other Jews behave badly, particularly publicly, we are responsible.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. I don't disagree with you. There is a concept, another mitzvah, which is called Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name, and Chilul Hashem. That's the converse of that. That's the opposite, when we don't sanctify Hashem's name. And we have to take personal responsibility. It's interesting that you mentioned the first 2 commandments, and it's interesting to know. I will just quote them. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. You shall not have any other gods in my presence. You shall not make yourself a carved image, nor any likeness of that which is in the heavens above, on the earth below, etc., etc. For I am a jealous God. Yes? Notice all this. It's in the first person. That's the first 2 commandments and the first person. When it changes then, and it says, you shall not take the name of Hashem, your God, in vain. Right? Notice. That's the first point I want to make. The first 2 are in the first person, speaking I. Hashem is speaking directly to Bnei Yisrael. Now, funny enough, if you look at the actual Pesukim, the actual verses, and I dare you to do this on Friday morning, and look at the first words. God spoke all these words saying, right? Who is he speaking to? Now, that's a big a disagreement about that. Is he speaking to all Bnei Yisrael? Is he just speaking to Moshe? If you look at the first 2, he's speaking in the first person. Very interesting. And then he changes to third person, like it's almost as if Moshe is reporting it. The Midrash picks up on it and says the Bnei Yisrael couldn't take it. They couldn't take Hashem speaking directly to them. So you know what? Hashem changes to the third person. It's like he's not speaking directly. I don't know what's happened over here. I've lost you, Ross. Oh, you're still there. It all moves around. I can't always think. Are you with me with that? So that's number 1. I would like to say something else about this. When God said those 2 commandments, all those commandments, it's commanded to you. I am the Lord, your God, not your God collectively, but Elokecha, your personal God. Hashem is speaking to me individually. I brought you out from the land of Egypt. And since I'm your personal God, and you actually experience, by the way, it doesn't say there who created the heavens and the earth. It's your experience. It's your personal experience, because your ancestors, you were there. You were there in Egypt. I took you out. And it's personal. And this is completely out. Lord Tiltzach, you shall not murder. It says, Lord Tiltzachu, you shall not murder, i.e., you as a people, but it's talking about you as an individual. Absolutely right, Rosalind. It's personal. It's Hashem is speaking to me, which is really interesting. So you brought out some very important points, which perhaps I brought out, but I didn't emphasize as much as you did. Thank you very much. And we do have to take personal responsibility. And that's what Judaism was about. But also at the same point, we come together on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, and we include everybody, including also our sinners, right, amongst us. Because Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze B'Zeh, all Israel are guarantors for one another. We are all parts. We are all Arevim. We're all mixed together. We're all part of one, and we all have a responsibility to ourselves, and also a responsibility to our families and to our communities. Does that answer the question, Rosalind?
Yeah.
Thank you. Avril, go on.
In your talk, you talked about why the 10 Commandments were more important than all the other commandments, but I don't think you finished it sufficiently. I didn't understand why the 10 Commandments were more important than everything else.
No, I actually didn't say that. I didn't say they were more important than the other ones. No, not at all. That's exactly the point of the talk. The 10 Commandments are not more important than all the other commandments in the Torah. Each one of the commandments are supposed to be kept. You cannot turn around and say, right, keeping kosher is important, wearing tefillin is not important. Or I turn around and I say, keeping Shabbat is not important, but not stealing is important. Whatever. They are all important. For us to make that connection, they are all important. And some of us fail, I mean, you know, fail on our own little level, or we all have sinned to a certain degree. We haven't kept everything that we're supposed to, but we're supposed to try to keep all the commandments, that's all. Why, therefore, do we have the 10 commandments? Why are they the 10 commandments? I think the 10 principles. Each one of the different commandments comes under one of those 10 principles. And it teaches us that we have to, you know, I think the word is, we're very much into sound bites. Sound bites means, you know, you say one word and that's it. That's not our morality then. Morality is much deeper than that. And you can't just keep it to the 10 commandments. That's why, by the way, 10 commandments is a wrong translation. 10 commandments, it's 10 statements. But it's not enough. You can't just say, oh, I keep the 10 commandments, that's it. I try to keep much more than that. Hopefully, we try to. Of course, we're not perfect human beings, but at least we try to, we have aspirations to be better people. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
We're all descended from the Jews at Mount Sinai.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who are we? Who are we? My parents said to me, and we kept Pesach, and we kept all the different things that we keep. What we are? Who are we then? Who are the Jews? You know?
We're only 100. Is it 130 generations down? It's not that much in the scale of.
Who's that? Shana? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we are. I think
we're not. It's not actually even that far. It's like we can comprehend it. It's not like a figure that we can't even comprehend that far back.
No, it's not that many. It's not so far back. It's not so far. And it's important for us to realize. Derek, you have a question. Unmute yourself, please. No, hold on. Let me unmute you. Hold on. Yes. No. Hold on. Yes, you're unmute. No. Do it again. Do it again. You do it. Oh, hold on.
Rabbi, please can people mute themselves who've spoken and are no longer speaking because it interferes with everything?
Yes. Derek, thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. Derek and Esther, you're on. Go on.
Okay. You brought in the early part comparison of the use of the commandments in Judaism and Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to widen it to what are the three monotheistic religions. Now, the Christians, whatever they say, as you later put in one of the answer one of the questions, at the very most they're keeping 7. Mm-hmm. Now, if the 10 Commandments are the headings or principles of the remaining 603, then in reality the Christians aren't keeping any. So if they're not keeping any, so they're not observing any of the commandments properly. So I want to comment on that one. And where do the Muslims fit in this when they've got their Quran, whatever they call it? So how do they fit in? How close do they get to the 613 commandments?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question, and I have to do. I mean, that's a share within itself, because we're talking about the 7 Noahide laws, and I think at some stage I think we should have a share about that. There's also another question about whether or not we should be reaching out to the non-Jews, and there are elements within, yes, even the Haredi community. I'm talking particularly about Chabad, that would say, yes, we should be reaching out to the non-Jews as well, to tell them about the 7 Noahide laws. Quite interesting that they do that, actually. And that was something that the Rebbe, the late Rebbe, was very strong about. And he was like, oh, I have a Noahide friend, she keeps Shabbat and studies Judaism, keeps probably more mitzvahs than that. Thank you for that one, Rosalind. You see, that it's important to know. Should be reaching out to them, because you know, we also believe as Jews, we do not believe that it's exclusively Jews that get up there to the pearly gates. We would also believe that non-Jewish people, if they're good people and upstanding people, they also get it. So we would try to encourage them. Now, by the way, that's not like any other religion. We don't tell them that you have to be a Jew to be a good person. You could be a non-Jew and be a good person. By the way, I just quoted from the Talmud. It says, "Chasidei umat ha'olam," the righteous of the Chasidei umat ha'olam, the righteous of the nations of the world, have a portion in the world to come. Right? That's an unbelievable statement. Because if you're a Christian would say, you believe in Jesus. Right, so you could do anything you want, but as long as you believe in Jesus, you're going to be okay. That means we're all excluded. We are immediately excluded. Now, from our viewpoint, if the Christian is a good, upstanding person and keeping their religion, right, which says thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, etc., etc., they themselves actually are not far off it. Right, they're probably not far off it. They might have a problem about the idolatry one, but I'm not going to go into that. It's a completely different discussion, right? But they're not keeping the Sabbath day, not the way that we do it, and not the way the Torah prescribes us to do it. So they're not keeping that one. But they are trying to keep, and they're being good people. And we would believe they have a portion in the world to come, and that goes for the Muslims also, as long as it's not killing people, you know, which some of them might be doing, right? But if they're being upstanding good people, we would believe that they would also have a path and a way to come close to God. That's a very interesting way that Judaism looks at things. In other words, you don't have to be Jewish. Now, for a Jew, you've got to do what Jews are supposed to do. But you don't have to be Jewish to get to God. It's really interesting. I think that's a tremendously open way that Judaism looks at other religions, right? That's my first point to you. So that I just want to think. And Rosalind, you just mentioned about the Noachide and the Noachides and the Noachide friend that you have that keeps laws. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Does that answer the question, Sarah? Does that answer it?
Sort of. The only thing I'm saying is that one could argue that the Christians are not keeping any of the commandments because they totally ignore the 603. And therefore, since the 10 are amplified by the remaining 603, they're really not keeping any. Now, I'm not sure where the Muslims fit into all of this. From what my understanding is, they sort of have a hybrid between Christianity and Judaism. So they seem to be doing a sort of quasi 613, but not properly doing the 613. I don't know whether I'm right on this.
But I don't need them to. I don't need them to, Derek. I don't think you were listening. I don't need the non-Jewish people to do that. I don't. As long as they're keeping the 7 Noachide laws, I'm okay. Within that...
The point I'm saying, Rabbi, is that they're not keeping the 7 if they don't add to it with the other commandments within the 7.
Yeah.
Because they're 613 altogether. And the other 603 are contained within the 10 commandments. So some of the 603 are contained within the 7 Noahic commandments, and therefore then really not keeping those either.
I think more or less. Some of them more, some of them less. I think that's a sweeping statement. I think you have to be careful. I think you think, and I think we have to discuss in a separate lesson about the 7 Noachide laws and what are they, what should they be doing, etc. And what do they incorporate, and do they incorporate as much as you think? That's really how I would really deal with that question. Martin said, I didn't answer the question. I did. Of course I did. Of course it's much deeper. Thank you. Of course it's much deeper than the film. The film was great. Charlton Heston. but that's not really the thing. The thing is, Judaism is much deeper than that, obviously. And we know that. We know that. Does it answer the question now? Yeah.
I've got to Charlton Heston. I don't think Moshe Rabbeinu spoke with an American accent.
Okay. Okay. I've been given something from Mike. Mike, you want to say something, or Mike, want to speak? No. No. Okay. I just saw something from Mike. Okay. I think.
Rabbi, I could, but no, I won't. I mean, I could take on the rest of the day.
Okay.
I just don't think we should be discussing other religions in the context of this. And quite frankly, I have a very close friend who is a Church of England minister who would get very offended if he felt that the Jewish people felt that he was breaking the whole of the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
And we should be very, very careful how we discuss things like that.
Okay, okay. Listen, we have a particularist religion. We have a particularist religion for us. And this was a particularist talk about the Ten Commandments, what it meant to us and everything else. There is a way in which we do look at the non-Jewish people. And it's a positive way. And that is really what the message that I wanted to say about on that question. I think it's and at some other talk, maybe I'll talk about the universal message of Judaism and
He's still watching this.
Some other talk.
I mean, if I can just come back on a quick point, Rabbi.
Yeah.
When we go back to "Thou shalt not murder," and some people actually translate that as "Thou shalt not kill" anyway. There is, of course, two instances in the Torah which are very difficult to explain on that. One, of course, is Pinchas, where Pinchas clearly did murder and got rewarded for it. But I guess you can say that that is also a topic for another share. I mean, the other one, of course, is Moshe Rabbeinu, who killed the Egyptian.
Right, yes.
That was probably also murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could argue then that the Ten Commandments hadn't been given, but certainly Pinchas, as blatant a case of murder as you can actually find.
Yeah.
And of course, he was rewarded for it.
Yeah, and the question was, because of, I mean, this is a talk that I've given in the past when it comes to Parashas Pinchas, or actually not Parashas Pinchas, it's actually the end of Parashas Balak, where it actually happens, where he takes the, it's actually quite graphic. He took a spear in his hand and he killed both of them. And he took them in. And God rewards him in that particular case, but Pinchas wasn't made the leader after that. Important point. He wasn't made the leader. He was rewarded, but he wasn't the thing. Why? Because he took the initiative. But it's not looked on as and that's a sheer within itself. Another sheer. Yeah.
Agreed.
But a good talk, a good discussion to have. Anybody else with an interesting comment or any more questions?
Well, hello.
Hello, who's that?
Can you hear me?
Mark.
Mark.
Yeah, go on, Mark.
Where does Pikuach Nefesh come in the 613?
Danger to life. Very, very good question. Danger to life. Okay. So, okay, very, very good one. I think it's in Parashas Kedoshim, if I'm not mistaken.
Shouldn't it be one of the 10?
No, it wouldn't.
It beats all the others apart from murder and the 4.
Very good question. Where does it come in? I've got to find it.
Sorry.
So it's actually a very good question. Kedoshim, I think it's Parashas Kedoshim, but I have to get this wrong. Achemos Kedoshim.
I mean, it is so important. Shouldn't it be? Yeah. Why is it not more prominent?
Well, it's not. It's implied, but it's not. It's not actually said specifically.
Yeah.
Hold on. And you have it in a number of different places. Firstly, you have it in Parashas Emor, where it says "V'chai bahem." When it talks about the mitzvot, you should live with them, and the rabbis learn from that. The law, sheyamut bahem. You shouldn't die through them. So for that situation, For example, if you have a mitzvah which is particularly difficult and you can't do it, then you should live through it. So in halacha, you would make a weight between one particular thing and another one. Prime example, the doctor says to you that the only way that you're going to get better is if you eat some pork, right? Now we know the Torah says you're not allowed to eat pork, right? But if the doctor says that the only way you're going to get better is you're going to eat pork, you're supposed to live.
There are some tablets that have bits of certainly non-kosher meat extracts.
Yeah.
There are some enzymes.
Yeah.
So
what we do, we have a kosher list, and we make sure that the stuff that we get is kosher. But if it's a situation where there's nothing else available, you can take it.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Another example: we're supposed to keep Shabbat. However, in the situation, there's a very famous rabbi, very far right-wing rabbi named Rabbi Weiss, who was pleading with people. I find it very interesting. Don't gather together. Make sure you know the coronavirus and everything else. And he said that if somebody goes in over Shabbat or Yom Tov, there are 3 days of Yom Tov, and they go into hospital, it's not only permitted, but the family should be phoning them on Shabbat to keep in touch with them, because you could be keeping them alive, because you couldn't go into the hospital to visit them.
Yeah. Yes.
So the rabbi, this Rabbi Weiss, is right-wing as they come, who's saying, please make sure that you phone up on Yom Tov, on Shabbat. I'm being serious, to make sure that these, because they were afraid that, number one, people would lose hope, no contact for 3 days, you think, and you think. So it's very interesting. You should live with the mitzvah. Don't die with them. But there's also other places. That's the one that's coming off my mind. That comes out that's like Lo tamod adam ra'echa ani Hashem. Do not stand idly by when your fellow's blood is shed. Ani Hashem. Right? You're not allowed to stand idly by. In other words, in all situations, you should go out and to try to save somebody's life, including your own life, of course. So there's a lot of different pasukim. Another shir, Mark, another shir. Okay, I promise you, I'll come to it at some stage. I could give a shir on that one. Yes. Anybody else like to make a comment or like to ask a question? No. Okay. Have I exhausted this topic today?
Just a comment regarding Pikuach Nefesh.
Yeah.
No.
Down here in the land of sunshine and sea, I have been called a self-hating Jew for pointing out Pikuach Nefesh in relation to these minyanim and the virus. So,
yeah.
An interesting point. I'm now a self-hating Jew, apparently.
No, you're not.
No, I know I'm not, but that's how I'm being viewed, how I and others are being viewed.
Well, it's quite an interesting thing. You could say that these people are very machmir, they're very strict on minyan. They're strict on going to minyan, making sure they get to the minyan, blah, 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 blah. But there's actually something which overrides that, which is machmir on your own life and looking after other people's lives. Mm. So you've got to be strict on that. And that does override other things. So I think it's a thing. But talking about Bournemouth, I saw some pictures of Bournemouth, and on the beaches, oh my gosh, there must have been hundreds of thousands of people on the beaches there. I wonder if there was social distancing there. It does make, there is stuff. We have to be very careful, because we are identifiable as a little group of people, especially Hasidim in Bournemouth or in Stamford Hill. They are very identifiable, and if they do something, everybody knows, oh, look at Hasidim, they're terrible. On the other hand, there were literally hundreds of thousands of people who were sunning themselves in parks and on beaches and everything else. Perhaps not so identifiable, but they weren't doing social distancing. So it's just important. I was in the park yesterday, And I noticed a lot of people were not practicing social distancing. I could have taken pictures, but at the end of the day, they weren't full people. They were just normal people. And we got to realize, you know, we've got within our own communities this, but we've got it's in the wider community as well. And the message should get out there. We have to be very careful. Kiddush Hashem is something very important. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. It's really lovely to have you with us. You want to say something, Mike? No, you're going to say bye-bye.
Oh, is he? Okay. Oh, Rabbi, can I just thank you on everybody's behalf
just say
today?
goodbye and have a good Yom Tov.
Right there, thank you. Goodbye. Have a good Yom Tov tomorrow.
And don't forget
much,
everybody
Rabbi.
to read. Don't forget everyone. Don't just eat your cheesecake, but read the Aseret Dibros on the first day of Shavuos. It's the most important part of the festival.
Yeah.
Is this book okay to read?
Do his joke.
I was only
Very
kidding.
good. Very nice. Thanks very much, Rabbi. It was very, very inspiring.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you. By the way, we are 6:45 tomorrow night. We've got some learning.
That's right. Yes.
Learning tonight, tomorrow night. We're going to have a little bit. Please join us for that. That's 6:45 tomorrow night. Not too long.
Rabbi, can I ask a question? A little, not really related to this too much.
Sure, Shana.
Could I just ask a question? Apparently, I heard we have to say, is it Aleinu, something quietly because Yom Tov and Shabbos? Is that right? No, Shalom Aleichem or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why does it come? Why does that take precedence over Shabbos? Because I thought Shabbos would always take the other way round over Yom Tov.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing. It is Yom Tov. It is still Yom Tov, so we mustn't forget it's Yom Tov. So it's quite an interesting thing actually. That's a discussion. Why do we say Shalom Aleichem quietly? We also say Eshet Chayil quietly. Okay, like you did for Pesach. Yes, I will do that for Pesach. Yes, I'm going to do that later. I think it's a very important thing, but I think we've got to realize that the prayers that we're going to be doing over the 2 days of Yom Tov are Yom Tov prayers with inserts for Shabbat, not the other way around. Because Shabbat, and we're laning for Shavuot, we're not laning for Shabbat. Now, if you're in Israel, when you only have 1 day, then on Shabbat, you're going to be doing the Kriyat Torah for Parashat Basor. We get an extra Shabbat for that. Okay? We have another Shabbat for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's the reason why. You got it? So the
yes,
main
thank
thing
you very much.
is we put the Shabbat and Shavuot is the main thing. Yeah? Oh, don't forget about Erev Tashim. Don't forget to do it Erev Tashim. Right, tomorrow?
Yes.
I'll send out stuff for all of you.
Yes, that'd be good. All right, thank you.
It's really nice to have you all with us. I'm going out with my kids this afternoon. I think I'm going to take them to Cassiaberry. Okay? You want to come? I'll meet you there.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Rabbi, when you get time, come down to Battersea Park. It's lovely. Come and see
I've been
me.
there.
It's
I've
lovely
been
for
there.
Oh, you've been? Oh,
Yeah, there's a nice little zoo there. Am I right?
Sorry?
There's a nice little zoo in Battersea.
Zoo?
Yeah, and a boating lake and crazy
Very nice.
gulls.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I don't know if the zoo is open at the moment. But
There's no social distancing there.
yeah.
You all right, Molly?
Everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Chag Sameach to you all.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you. And love to Audrey.
Howard, and to
We had
Audrey.
good news with Audrey.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please God. Please God, Howard, give my regards.
Yes.
Will do.
Chag
Thank you.
Sameach. Hi, Esther.
Hi, good to see you, Molly.
Lovely to see you.
You too look great.
Look
You
good.
two look great. You do.
Bye-bye. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Anna,
Good to see you.
Stanley, we keep well. Leon, lovely. Lenny, lovely to see you. Lawrence, Marlene, lovely.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Wish you well.
I enjoyed your shiur. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you
Yeah. That's my second one today because I had one with our rabbi, Rabbi
Oh,
Budilowski.
that's nice. Good.
You as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, I better go.
Have a lovely
All
Yontif.
right, bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye, Rabbi.
Bye. Bye. Shabbat
Bye.
shalom.